Hello and welcome to this edition of the Farrell Phelps Show. My guest today is none other than Hershell, Earnest. Hershell, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Hershell, just to let you guys know, Hershell is an author. He's authored the book, This is Chess, Not Checkers. And when I first heard that title, I talked to you. I'm like, what is this about? And you gave me a little bit of an explanation about what the book was about. But before we get into that, I want the audience to know a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I am a husband, father, grandfather, avid golfer, author, certified professional life coach. And I run an organization called Bowtie Brothers, which is a mentoring program for middle school and high school students, young men.
Now, I want to ask you, what motivated you to get that particular thing started?
With Bowtie Brothers, that came about through my church, who wanted to start a program which came out of Dallas, the National Church Adopt a School Initiative, which advocates that every church in the community adopt a school to provide mentoring and leaderships and family support services. So with that and my pastor, I decided to branch out, and we adopted a middle school in the Aldine district as well as a ninth grade center. And we've been providing mentoring and life skills and family support services for about 2 years now.
Wow. And you know, that type of thing is so good because we see so many churches in the communities, and oftentimes we're wondering, what are these churches doing? You know, we see them in the community, we see like 100 churches in one community, but what are they doing for the kids? What are they doing for that community? So to hear that you're doing this type of thing from the church is a great thing.
Yeah.
And I know that your target market is young kids as well as like middle school, I think, and a little bit more. That's what your target is, from what I've understood.
The target for mentoring is middle school. The book is written for high school students and first, second year college students.
And students that are actually transitioning.
Right.
And I noticed that one of the things that you said for you, when you were in high school, you were like the big fish. And now, once you transition to college, you're like the little fish in this huge pond.
Right.
And so you talk about the transition of high school to college. What was that like for you?
Well, I didn't experience it personally. Coming out of high school, what prompted me to writing this book and really put it on my heart was my apathy towards education as a high school student. I really didn't see the value of a good education in high school. With that, my options were limited when I graduated, so the Army quickly became my best option. It was there in the service where I found my passion for public speaking.
Okay.
As a soldier, I started boxing for the Army for the first 7 years, and they would send me out to high schools to talk to high school students about life in the military and sports in the military. So with that, I found that I had a passion for public speaking. That would be the furthest thing from my mind if you'd asked me when I was 13, 14 years old.
Right.
Growing up, I had a speech problem, I stuttered, I was shy, a bit of an introvert, very nervous when it came to being around girls. So to stand in front of a crowd of folks and talk was the furthest thing from my mind. But
next thing you know, you're doing it.
I'm telling you.
And you know what I
passion
find?
was there.
What I find very interesting, and I'm a big Les Brown fan, and I heard you a moment ago say that Les Brown was certainly one of those people for you. I always admired Les Brown, always studied what he did, always looked to him for motivation. And one of the things about his history, if you know anything about him, he was labeled educably retarded, and that he could not learn, he could not do this, that, and the other, and he's become one of the most world-renowned speakers that ever existed in the world. So we have to be careful of the labels that we allow people to put on us. Let me say that, number one. Number two, a lot of times people that end up being public figures and speakers in front of millions of people are those that oftentimes were deemed shy or reserved or things like that. And so it's interesting that you should say that, and I couldn't help but reflect on Les Brown when you said it immediately. And I remember being in, I want to say it was junior high school, and I remember I was having issues with being bullied during that time in school, and I remember them wanting the teacher saying that I need to go to these basic classes, and as if I didn't have the wherewithal to speak well or do well in school. And so my parents were like, oh no, we're not having that. You know what I'm saying? But it's funny because now I speak to everybody.
Right.
You know, now I'm doing this. You know, now I do motivational speaking as well, and all these different things. But we have to be very careful of the labels that we will attach to people, and then you have to also be careful of what you believe that others say about you. As well, because we buy into certain beliefs about ourselves, and we'll stay in that place just simply based on the word that was spoken by somebody else. So from that shy person that you once were, you became a motivational speaker,
Right.
as well as life coach.
Right.
So your target audience for the motivational speaking is that peer group that we spoke of?
It is. It is middle school and high school. And I just want to step back a little and comment on something you mentioned just a minute ago. It's not only the labels folks put on you, but I was one of those students, smart, no discipline issues, but I allowed myself to be marginalized. I just didn't try. You know, when I took the easy way out, I would find myself in, basic classes, math, English, and I was in a brick masonry course, which was a 3-hour class, junior and senior year. And I took that simply to get out of regular required classes that would have challenged me academically to be better than I was allowing myself to be. You know, so I, for whatever reason, made that choice. And I write about it in the book. It's just, I matured in terms of progressing through the grades, but academically and mentally, not only was I academically immature, I was socially immature. And,
Okay.
you know, those bad choices led to limited opportunities after graduation. So I know 40 years ago, which I'll enjoy my 40th class reunion here in about 6 months.
Okay.
But 40 years ago, I was apathetic towards education, didn't really see the importance of having a solid educational foundation. And students today are still in that same situation, that 60% in the middle, who, if you're not making enough noise for yourself to get people to pay attention to you, if you're to seek the things you want, you
Right.
can fall through the cracks. And I was one of those that allowed myself to fall through the cracks.
Right. And you know what I say about falling through the crack? Sometimes you have to fall through the crack in order to come up and rise. And it's okay to fall through the crack, especially when you learn from that falling through the crack experience.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about it is, because you experienced it, now you can help other people that may be falling through the cracks or going through things themselves as well. So I do understand how you can be the person that you are right now.
Right.
You know, and that's what's really important when we look at our lives. Anything that has happened in our life, if we can take that opportunity to use it to make a difference in our lives and to make a difference in the lives of others, that's when we're winning.
Right.
And that's what's important. So to hear you say that's what you did and now you're doing this, that means you're winning. So you might have fallen through the crack for just a moment, but you're rising now.
Right.
And I want to talk a little bit more about motivation when we come back. We're going to be back in just a moment. You guys stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tired of wasting time threading needles? What would you do with more time? Would you spend it with family, grow your business, take a class, or travel? There's a remarkable new tool available to help make your dream for more time a reality. The Easy Needle Multi-Threader was designed for weavers, seamstresses, and quilters to thread multiple needles in a fraction of the time than traditional methods. It eliminates tangles and prevents the possibility of germs and bacteria due to fallen needles and threads onto the floor. It's efficient, it's innovative, it's a time saver. Increase your productivity with Easy Needle Multi-Threader today.
Sky Trues Custom Eyewear has taken the world by storm. In only 8 months, Sky Trues has gained the eyes of many, including celebs like Big Sean, Little Flip, Destiny's Child, Soulja Boy, just to name a few. Through custom design, Sky Trues can put your imagination on your frames. I bring to you the next big thing in Houston, Sky Trues, created by Golden Boy, the musician, the artist, the entrepreneur, and grassroots marketing genius. Be inspired. Sky Trues, custom designed frames. Sky
All right, welcome back to this edition of the Phil Phelps Show with my guest today. Dang, ain't that something? I ain't done that in years. No, you ain't gotta stop it, baby. Keep it going. Hershell, Earnest. Let's give it up for Hershell. And I also want to thank our food sponsor tonight. That's Cajun Subs, Cajun Subs. We thank you guys for being our food sponsor on tonight. You guys can certainly look them up online. That's Cajun Subs. It's in Spring, Texas. It's look like it's 1027 Sawdust Road, number 375 in Spring, Texas. You guys look them up. They're our food sponsor for tonight. All right, back to my man. All right. I wanted to talk to you about the motivational speaking and what we talked about a minute ago. And the reason why I want to talk about that is the beginning of the year. And this is the first show of the 2019 season. And so many of us set goals in the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. And we have resolutions in the beginning of the year. The gym is packed in the beginning of the year. And so I want to talk a little bit about how we set goals and then what it takes to actually keep those goals.
Yeah, okay. When I address this with high school students and first-year college students, it's really taking from the subtitle of the book, The Entrepreneurial Approach to Education. It's taking small business principles and using those principles along with the 4 functions of management that help you plan, organize, lead, and control. And from that is where you really build that roadmap. You know, if you're looking at starting something different for a high school student, saying that today I'm going to start working towards where I want to be when I graduate high school and enter college, I really need to write that out. And I need to be very detailed with it when it comes to what is that going to look like.
Okay.
I mean, as detailed as it would be if you were to say, if you were to take a road trip today from Houston to Boston, Massachusetts, you know, without using a GPS or Google Maps, you would have to take out an atlas map and you would track from Houston to Boston, Mass, and you would know that you jump on I-10 going east to Mobile, Alabama, taking 65 north to Montgomery, shooting over to the 705 in Atlanta, going through the Carolinas on 85 to the 95 Turnpike up to Boston.
Okay.
In doing that, you do a lot of things. How many miles you were traveling, gas you would need, stops you would have to make, hotel lodging if you want to stay overnight. All these things are detailed out because your goal is to make it to Boston, Mass, and I'd end up in Cleveland, Ohio somewhere. So for someone to just say, you know, I want to start doing this today, and you're not writing it out to look at how am I going to manage this, because if you're not measuring it, you can't manage it. And so you have to look at, you know, on a weekly or monthly, depending on how you want to manage your time, figuring out what needs to happen, and then set those milestones out there. That long-range goal is a long-range goal. In a lot of cases, that's a long time. As I tell students, the day you step on campus as a freshman, there's 1,460 days until you graduate. That's a lot of time to just say, I'm graduating in 4 years. What am I going to do every day to ensure that that happens? Those milestones you set is what's going to keep you in line with that long-range goal. And when you start veering off track, you'll know, because you've set your plan to say that, you know, halfway through the semester, here's where I need to be. Right. And for some of us, you have to do that daily. Some of us can be disciplined enough to do it weekly or monthly, but you can't wait till the end of the semester to take a look at where am I now in this semester. By then, it's too late. You can't do any adjustments. No difference in being on the highway. If you don't listen to the GPS to tell you to reroute yourself, you could be traveling in the wrong direction for miles before you realize it.
Right.
And that happens to a lot of us when we just put a plan out there and not take the time to write it down and then map out exactly what it's going to look like.
So we need to consistently manage that.
You got to have a roadmap. You got to know where you're going. One of my favorite quotes says, if you start a journey without a destination in mind, you'll never arrive. And if you don't know where you're going, you can end up just about anywhere.
Absolutely. And you know, that's one, you talked about writing it down. And that's like a scriptural. You know, you write it down, you make it plain. And a very dear friend of mine recently forced me to write things. Actually, they wrote it down for me, a map of where I need to be and where I need to go and all this good stuff. And I thank her for doing that. But it's important that we have a template, because if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there.
Right.
And having a template is so important. And also, like we said a minute ago, staying consistent with it and watching it and monitoring it. And I know for myself, I'll get off course so easily. I mean, a phone call would just throw me off. You know what I'm saying? And knowing that I have goals in mind that I need to tend to, a simple phone call can throw me off. And I'll stay off for like a whole week. For real. And then I'll come back to it. You know, so we have to know ourselves, and then we have to, not only that, but we have to get rid of distractions. Anything that's distracting us from that goal, from our purpose, we got to put it to the side in order to achieve whatever that goal is. Right. And so every time we get to this place annually, every time we get here, I always want to do a show on motivation and on goal setting, because so often we set these goals, but we don't keep the goal. You know, we say we want to lose 25 pounds, but we eating Shipley donuts like I do. So, you know, and I'm just, they say you got to keep it real. And so we can't defeat whatever our goal purpose is. So if you have a goal, you got to keep it in mind. You got to say, hey, I got to deny myself these gummy bears. That's one of my weaknesses. I eat gummy bears. You know what I'm saying? And I won't get to my weight loss goal if I keep on eating gummy bears.
Right.
And then the weight, the scale is my monitoring. You know, I get on the scale and say, oh man, I done gained 2 pounds. That button popped off my jacket, hit somebody in the eye. You know, you did all this kind of stuff. You know, you deal with when you're not staying consistent with what you're supposed to be consistent with. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's very important. So what tips would you give somebody who's trying to set goals right now? What would be like? Let's break it down in very simple terms. What would you give somebody who's just starting right now? They never set goals in their lives. They never have anything particularly set in front of them. What kind of guidance would you give that person, a basic person that's not done any of this before?
I would first say that think about what it is you want to accomplish, and let's say if it's weight loss, you know, and we talk all the time about SMART goals, you know, being SMART goals, being specific, being measurable, being achievable, and have a time limit on it, you know, and being realistic and have a time. Those goals, if you write down that long range goal and then start working backwards from that point, it creates a roadmap that you can follow. Now the thing is, everyone veers off course. That's going to happen. But it has to be something that you have a passion for achieving. If you don't have a passion for it, chances are you're going to shy away from it. No different than those of us who started weight loss goals at the beginning of the year, and by the middle of January, towards the end of January, we've fallen off, and now we haven't been to the gym since the 2nd. So, you know, so writing it down, and not only writing it down, sharing it with someone who will help you hold yourself accountable. You can convince yourself anything that you should or shouldn't be doing at any given moment. So if I'm telling myself that I should be going to the gym every day, at least I should have someone holding me accountable to say that, Pharaoh, did you get to the gym today?
Right.
No, I did not. Well, I'll go with you tomorrow to make sure you get back on track. But someone has to be that accountability partner. Without it, you're kind of out there by yourself. And for a lot of students, when we talk about that transition from high school to college, they tend to go there with a pretty good foundation in terms of, you know, that parental support. But once you're there, you kind of lose the idea that, you know, I've got people behind me that are pushing for me. But if you just start focusing on those that are around you, who doesn't share that common goal that you share, they'll talk you out of being the person you went there to be.
That you're capable of being. Okay, now you talked about working backwards, writing it down, but working backwards. So explain that real quick.
Starting with the end in mind. You know, if my goal is to be a college graduate with a bachelor's degree in public administration, that's my long range goal. So when I start working back from that, it's going to bring me all the way back to what do I need to do to get out of high school, from high school to transitioning to my freshman year of college, what's going to happen in the freshman year, how's that first semester look, the second semester. So I'm taking that from graduating from college to now, how do I get from here to there? I know the destination, how do I get to that destination? And you really have to be thorough and detailed in what that looks like. I mean, considering you go into college in August, which, whether you're a football fan or not, it's football season.
Right.
And all the pageantry that's leading up to game day on Saturday, there's a lot going on campus. Now, I didn't go to college right out of high school, but I spent a lot of time at K-State and the University of Louisville as a soldier in the military station at Fort Knox. So I saw and enjoyed all the partying, but unlike a student, I had the discipline to get up and go to, you know, be in formation every day because it was required as a soldier. You miss that, you're AWOL.
Yeah.
If I decide not to get up at 8 o'clock to go to class as a student, I'm just not getting up and going to class.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
so-
a little bit different. So in the Army, the military, you had the accountability that you had
Very
to
much so. That's
adhere
why
to, as opposed
you
to
have to have someone to hold you accountable, whether it's a parent, a cousin, another friend on campus. Someone has to be that accountability partner, because there are going to be days that you're not going to want to get out of that twin bed. And someone or something has to motivate you to do that.
There you go. And they can find out a little bit more about that motivation
Definitely.
in this book. This is Chess, Not Checkers. You guys check this out. Now, before we leave, I want to make sure that anything that you want the listening audience to know that we may have missed in this interview.
If you have young folks in your life, middle schoolers, high schoolers, this is a very good read. Of course, I'm biased, but I will tell you, this is a very good read in order to get students to start thinking long-term about their future. This is Chess, Not Checkers. It's exactly what it is. If you're going through life today, being reactionary and acting as if you're playing checkers in a world where everyone's playing chess, you're going to be left behind.
That's good information right there. All right, you guys check out This is Chess, Not Checkers. Definitely a book you guys want to read. Thank you for everything. We're going to be back with our next guest, Mr. Robert Harper. You guys stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
Women invest a lot of valuable time in their stylist chair, creating and maintaining a polished image. Having been in the beauty industry for over 35 years, I have witnessed this investment firsthand. I knew that this was not the kind of experience that I wanted to provide for my clients, so I created a better way. The Easy Needle Multi-Threader is designed to make the weave installation process faster and easier, all in 5 simple steps. All you have to do is secure the Easy Needle Multi-Threader to a surface, insert the cushions into the unit, slide the needles into the cushions, place your thread onto the dowel, and thread your needles with the Easy Needle Threader. Stylists who use this product will never have to thread another needle in between weaving again. With the Easy Needle Multi-Threader, they can save time, save money, increase their clientele, and provide a wonderful experience for their clients.
All right, welcome back to this edition of the Farrell Phelps Show with my second guest, Mr. Robert Harper. Welcome to the show, Robert. So to bring you guys up to speed on who Robert Harper is, he is a minister and motivational speaker. We met probably a couple of months ago, I think,
Right.
a few months ago, and then I saw some of his YouTube, not YouTube, but Facebook videos with him doing his motivational speaking. I'm like, this man is off the chain. I mean, like, you know, to be his age and to be as passionate about what he's passionate about was just phenomenal. So I want you to tell them a little bit more about who Robert Harper is.
Okay. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I am one of 5 children, the youngest of 5 girls. So for me, I knew early on if I wanted to make an impact in my family that I needed to either say something funny or I needed to say something impactful, because they didn't want to hear it otherwise. You know, you're young, I don't want to hear from you. So I think as I got older, I started to realize that, hey, I need to say something that was meaningful, something that brings people together. And so I'm a motivational speaker, been ministering for 10 years as well as motivational speaking. So.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about ministering, I know a little bit of your history, and
Right.
your father was also a minister,
Right.
and you were an athlete,
Right.
and you didn't necessarily want to be a minister.
Not at all.
That was not in your plans, you know. A lot of times God has a plan for us that we have no idea of the plan, you know, and a lot of times there's things that we reject that we end up falling into later on in life. So it's interesting that you end up getting into ministry. And so you started a Bible study.
Right. I started a Bible study on the campus of North Harris, Lone Star College, simply because I had reached a point in my life where I knew I wanted to make a change, do something different. There were some friends of mine that I grew up with. They were doing things different. It really inspired me to make a change, do something else with my life. And so as a result, they inspired me. So I started taking the notes that they would have from their Bible studies, and I would do the same thing at Lone Star College.
Okay.
And so right around this time, I joined the organization on campus called SAB, Student African American Brotherhood, or Brother for Brother. And all of this the pieces that started to come together at the right time, because I was making a change for myself.
Okay.
There's a quote that I love. It says, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." It was like, for me, that was the right time for me. So I started the Bible study, did that for 2 years on campus. While I was there, I heard a motivational speaker who changed my life, and so all of this just started to snowball.
Okay.
For me at that time.
So one thing led to another.
Right, exactly.
To another, to another, to another. And that's what happens, especially when it's our destiny. It's like these steps that take place that we really have very little control over, but it just starts to happen.
Right, exactly.
You know, and the next thing you know, you're there in a place that you did not anticipate necessarily being.
Not at all.
And one of the good things for you is that you actually enjoy and love what you're doing now.
I do.
And you thought that football was going to be everything for you, but you suffered a few injuries along the journey, and then life kind of turned around for you.
Right. Well, I was playing basketball.
Oh, was it basketball?
Yeah, I was playing basketball, and it isolated me, you know. And I think anytime you get ready to go into another level, isolation is not a bad thing. It made me get focused. It made me really realize what's important to me. What are my values? What direction of my life I want to go in? And I didn't have anybody really to bounce any ideas off of. I didn't have anyone to tell me no or to make fun of my goals or my dreams. I was just foolish enough to go after them. And so when I started speaking, my first opportunity to speak, I was actually speaking for about 10 minutes because of the organization I was a part of.
Okay.
And I spoke on discipline, I believe it was. And my dad kind of helped me with the speech. And I came back home and I told my dad, I said, man, I love what I just did. And he said, man, if you become good enough, he said, they'll pay you for it. And
Right.
so I said, okay. I didn't know what a motivational speaker was at all. And so from there, I just hit the road running. I just got hungry for knowledge and for just reading every book, studying every speaker.
Okay.
And so for me, that was my training ground. I was really just doing the work there at Lone Star College.
All right. And so now from that, a lot of people want to know how to get started with something.
Right.
You know, if I want to be a motivational speaker, how do I actually get started with this? You know, what are the first steps that one would take if they want to be a motivational speaker?
Well, we got to make a decision. Just that this is what I want to do. This is what I desire to do. And, you know, it has to be something that you really, this is a gift. This is something that you enjoy doing. And you can kind of pick that up over the years. I like to say that as I look back on my life, I can say okay, this is where I was supposed to be. I remember being in middle school. I had a friend of mine. He said, man, I love playing with Robert, man. At the time, I didn't know where he was going with this because I wasn't that good to say something like that in middle school. And he said, man, I love playing with Robert because he always encourages me. And so as I look back on that, I just realized that's been a constant, that's been consistent over my life, that I'm an encourager, I'm a motivator, I'm inspiring people. And so it's I can clearly tell why I'm doing what I'm doing because this is natural to me. And so I would tell a person, is it natural to you? Is it your gift? Is it something that you enjoy doing? And if it is, you can endure anything. You can endure the suffering, the pain, the obstacles, the setbacks, because it's something that you know you're supposed to do.
Right. So as a motivational speaker, what's some of the biggest challenges for you to stay motivated yourself?
Some of the biggest challenges for me, I would say just getting out of my own way. Getting out of my own way. Lone Star College was a prep time. I mean, even now, what I do now, I do coaching. I help people become speakers, right? So many times people go into it thinking, I can make some money. And yes, you want to take care of yourself, and that's important. But you want to be true to the craft. You want to be true to the gift, the giver of the gift that gave it to you. And so when you do that, I would say, there's some things that you have to do in order to receive that paycheck right away. A lot of times we're not ready for that. We think we are, but you just have to go in and at Lone Star, I'll tell you what happened. At Lone Star, what I did was I was able to create a name for myself on campus, and so some of the professors, they say, we want you to come in and speak to our students in our classroom, the freshman class. And so I did that every week. I would speak on leadership, I would speak on emotional intelligence. This as a student, I was doing this, and I would speak on these different topics. And so without getting paid, but I would prepare as if I was getting paid.
There you go.
And I think that's so important, is that I was preparing as if I was getting paid. And so after doing that for years, it prepared me for that next step. And after a while, they said, hey, we have a seminar that's coming up, Black Male Summit. Okay. And they asked me to be the keynote speaker. But if I didn't have that preparation, prior to that, then I wouldn't have been able. I wouldn't have been selected. If I didn't humble myself, to be able to do something for free, but go and prepare as if it's not, then I wouldn't have been able to do that. So
yeah, and that's I think that's really important, because so often when people are starting up, they want to get paid immediately, and nobody wants to take the baby steps. We have to crawl. We have to crawl before we can get to the place where we can actually walk. So we have to learn to be patient with ourselves in that process, and not to be anxious for nothing. And I guess that's a good way to put it. Be anxious for nothing, and take that time out to understand that you're honing your craft. You're refining things. You're getting it to a place where you can get paid.
Exactly.
Where you can get respected for what you're doing in your industry. And I know what it was like for me as a photographer first starting out. I gave pictures away for free constantly. I just did. And as time went on, I began to do other things, and I worked for other companies and all this good stuff. As time went on, and then of course opening my own business for all these years. So, but we have to understand there's baby steps. There's baby steps to everything we want to do. We're going to be back in just a moment. You guys stick around with more of Robert Harper in just a moment. We'll be back.
Sky Trues Custom Eyewear has taken the world by storm. In only 8 months, Sky Trues has gained the eyes of many, including celebs like Big Sean, Little Flip, Destiny's Child, Soulja Boy, just to name a few. Through custom design, Sky Trues can put your imagination on your frames. I bring to you the next big thing in Houston, Sky Trues, created by Golden Boy, the musician, the artist, the entrepreneur, and grassroots marketing genius. Be inspired. Sky Trues, custom designed frames. Sky Trues!
Tired of wasting time threading needles? What would you do with more time? Would you spend it with family, grow your business, take a class, or travel? There's a remarkable new tool available to help make your dream for more time a reality. The Easy Needle Multi-Threader was designed for weavers, seamstresses, and quilters to thread multiple needles in a fraction of the time than traditional methods. It eliminates tangles and prevents the possibility of germs and bacteria due to fallen needles and threads onto the floor. It's efficient, it's innovative, it's a time saver. Increase your productivity with Easy Needle Multi-Threader today.
All right, welcome back to this edition of the Phil Phelps Show with my guest, Mr. Robert Harper. When we talk about ministry, and we talk about motivational speaking, how do you marry those two? How do you bring those two together when you're doing what you do?
That's a good question. I had, early on in my ministry and my speaking career, I had a hard time merging the two because I thought they were separate. And as I began to speak with my father, my dad, and my people that love me and care about me, they said, hey, they're not. This is just your style. This is the way you do things. And as I began to prepare my speeches, I couldn't help but spin that element to the motivation, encouragement element to it. And so when you hear me preach, people will say, man, that was so encouraging. Yeah. That was so uplifting. Or if you hear me at a motivational setting, they said, man, did you go to church somewhere? And so I can't help it. So I don't try to separate the two anymore. I just try to be true and authentic to who I am, and it comes out that way.
Yeah. And I think also what happens too when you're being a minister, some of what you do it from a ministerial perspective automatically just feeds into the motivational arena of your life when you're doing what it is that you do. And I think that's a blessing when it's that way, because it's all authentic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Do you ever tie scripture into it, or do you try to stay away from that based on who your audience is?
Well, I do. I drop nuggets from time to time. I may not give the specific verse, or I'll quote it. You know, I'll quote. You know, just like we use quotes. You know, in general, and I would use a quote. I would say something about being faithful over few. You know, something like that.
Gotcha.
Or these are things that I'm dropping nuggets as I'm speaking, but I know that at the same time I'm inspiring and uplifting. I'm doing my job and what they asked me to do.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to blend the two when I speak. Yeah.
So what's I would ask you what is some of the biggest challenges that you have as a minister and as a motivational speaker? Because we have challenges in everything that we do.
Yeah.
What's one of your biggest challenges when it comes to that arena?
One of the biggest challenges I would say is just being authentic. You know, being true to who you are. Whether that may be, because I take it very, when you come before people, you know, many times people think, man, because you're talking, you have it together, you've mastered it, and I try to be as transparent as possible to tell people I'm not as perfect, and so when you operate from that place, I think people can get a greater appreciation, and so for me, I do the behind the work scenes. That's the challenging part for me.
Gotcha.
Is that if I'm doing the work behind the scenes, if I'm living the life, making goals and setting those goals, I'm being committed to the commitments that I've made, and so that's the challenging part for me. The speaking, getting prepared, that's the easy part.
Okay.
You know, the challenging part is being true to what I'm saying, and so and not cutting corners. Yeah, that's the challenging part, and it's the most rewarding part too, because you know when you get up there and you're speaking, you know that you're supposed to be there.
Gotcha.
You're not faking it. You're not. You know, and they know that you're supposed to be there because you've done the steps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's key too. And I say this often. What comes from the heart touches the heart. When you can speak from a real place,
Right.
then that's when people are able to identify with you. And when they're able to identify with you, then you got those people on your side now.
Right.
You know, and when you're doing what you do, the whole purpose is to get them on your side so they can understand you, and then they can walk away having gained nuggets from that experience. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want those people that attend those events to walk away with nuggets, to walk away having gained something, to walk away with new knowledge, new understanding, new possibilities for their lives because of what you instill in them. So you have a big responsibility as a motivational speaker and as a minister,
Right.
and someone who professes to doing what it is that you do. Just like Hershell and Earnest did, who was our guest right before, you guys have a big responsibility doing what you do. Now, one of the questions that I asked Hershell earlier was, this is the beginning of the year.
Right.
And being a motivational speaker, what do you suggest people do that are trying to set goals and also trying to set New Year's resolutions and things of that nature? From your perspective.
I would suggest you get a why. You get a why that's big enough that will compel you to go after whatever the goal is that you're trying to go after. For me, when I was in college, I talk about this freely, that I had some challenges in school when I got to college. I was apathetic towards education. I didn't really see the best in me, what I could really do in my early years of schooling. So when I got to college, I didn't think that I would fit. I didn't think that this was possible. And so when these guys started coming to me telling me, hey, brother, hey, you can graduate, you can do this, it was kind of, intimidating, because I didn't see myself in that light. I saw myself as an athlete, but as a student and succeeding and graduating from school. And so what I did for me, I failed a couple of times in taking some college courses. And when you said earlier, you talked about falling in the cracks.
Yeah.
That was a low point for me. But what I realized was that I had a why. My mother, she gave me a piece of paper my senior year in high school, and a letter. She gave me a 4-page letter, and she gave it to me, and she just left.
Okay.
And so when she gave me that letter, I took it, I read it, and everything in that letter was basically saying, do well. I want you to succeed. Get focused. And so I took that letter and I said, I don't know what's next for me, but I will give this to my mom when I finish school. When I finish school, when I trade. And so it took me, I had some roadblocks to finish school, but I finished. And I always had that in my mind. I kept the letter.
Yeah.
And she didn't know I kept it.
Wow.
So when I finished school, when I graduated, I gave her back the letter. and she just began to cry.
Oh, wow.
Because I kept that letter.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big enough.
Yeah. That's
So you gotta
awesome.
have some wise. So you gotta have some people that are really behind you in your corner. There's a quote from Maya Angelou. She says that I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. Meaning that all the people that have supported her, has encouraged her, been there with her. So for me, when I look in the mirror, I see all the people that have invested in me. That's my why. That's my motivator.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. Wow. Very well said. Very well said. And you know, I think it's really cool that your mom wrote that letter.
Yeah, man.
And we don't understand the power of our words. We don't understand, especially from a parental perspective, you know, how we can make a difference in the lives of our kids simply based on the words that we speak. You know, we believe, as kids get older, we look back on things the parents said. And at the time, it don't always make sense. But when you look back on it, you realize the purpose for that moment in time from a parent's perspective. So I think it's a good deal that you were able to look back on that and then bring it back to your mama.
Yeah.
And then for her to become emotional about it because she probably wasn't expecting you to bring it back to her.
Not at all. It had been
You know?
years later. The only way she remembered what it was because she had to remember. She saw the date.
Okay.
And she saw the year I graduated, and that's how she connected the two.
Okay.
At first, she was reading and said, "What is this?" And she saw the date, and as she began to read it, she realized this was a letter that she had given me my senior year in high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's awesome. And you talked about falling through the cracks too.
Yeah.
A couple of times. And I want to say this about that. It's okay to fall through the cracks. It's not about falling through the crack. It's about how you get up from the crack.
Exactly.
That makes all the difference. And when we're able to fall through the cracks and rise, that's when falling through the crack was worth falling through the crack. So don't let the falling through the crack take you down forever.
Right.
It's just a short term, I would call it a delay.
A delay. That's all it is.
It's just a delay. And that delay can only make you better when you find out why you fell in the crack. You learn, okay, I fell in the crack because I stepped this way and I shouldn't have. You gain knowledge from falling in the crack so that you don't have to keep falling in the crack.
Right.
You know, crack is whack. Did Whitney Houston say that? But y'all know what I'm saying? You know, so when we learn about these cracks, then we can stay away from the crack.
Yeah, you want to stay away from the crack.
Stay away from the crack. All right? Robert, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Phil Phelps Show, man. Is there anything else that you want to say to our listening audience before we end?
Oh, man. I would share with people that just go after whatever the dream, the goal that's in your heart to be able to do. You know what that is already. There's a poem that talks about time. It says life is just a minute. There's only 60 seconds in it. I didn't seek it. Didn't seek it. It was forced upon me. Can't refuse it. But it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give an account if I abuse it. Just only 60 seconds, but eternity is in it. And it just talks about the importance of the value of time. Is that don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Go after it. Go after those dreams, those goals that you have. So yeah.
Now, before we end, you got an event coming up. Let's tell them a little bit about that event that you got coming up.
Well, it's called Live on Purpose. It's February 24th at the Sheraton North Hotel off JFK Boulevard. And it's called Live on Purpose because we're trying to create a movement where we're telling people to be intentional about the gifts that they have. Be intentional about where you go, who you hang out, the time that you spend. We all have gifts, but sometimes we don't manifest those gifts and don't share those gifts to the world. And so we want to encourage people to live on purpose, be intentional with their lives. So we have different groups that are coming in. We have a group called Soul Filling Podcast. They have a phenomenal podcast. We have a guy by the name of AD Speaks. He's a phenomenal speaker. J.O. Malone, he'll be the speaker as well. He's actually the co-founder of the Black Market Houston. And finally, I'll speak. But you don't want to miss this opportunity. It's called Live on Purpose, February 24th. We'll be there from 6 to 8 o'clock.
Okay, so how do they get information on that? Do they go to your website?
You can go to my Facebook Robert Harper. You can go to my Instagram, Robert Harper 2. There'll be a link in my Instagram account, which you find on eventbrite.com, Live on Purpose. And so, or you can just personally message me or contact me, and we can get you a ticket.
All right, so there you guys have it. I want to thank you guys for joining me on this edition of the Pharaoh Phelps Show. And for more information on me, you can go to my Facebook page, Pharaoh Phelps. You can also email me at letstalkabout@12tv@gmail.com. That's 12tv let's talk about it, 12tv@gmail.com. If you're looking for someone to do motivational speaking for you, looking for someone to MC your events, things of that nature, contact me for that as well. Thanks again for joining me on this edition of the Phil Phelps Show. Until next time, we'll see you then.